Good morning and welcome to this month's workshop. I appreciate everybody joining us and those who watch the video later. We are today going to be covering the joy and challenging of combining mediums with Nela. And Nela, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and what you're going to cover. And we all look forward to hearing what you have to say. And also, if you have questions, ask them along the way. You don't have to put it in chat. You don't have to raise your hand. But if you do need to, I'll be watching chat as well.
Okay. Well, thank you, Barbara. Well, thank you all for being there today here. Well, my name is Nela Navarrine. I'm so very thankful for the opportunity to share my work, and I hope that it inspires or something in you. Some of you have seen my work. I think Jamie. I changed a little bit since last year at the Columbia Art Fair. So the idea today is to share how I'm combining many mediums in one piece. I don't know if I can share the screen. Is it possible?
Let me give you responsibility for that.
Thank you.
Give me a second.
And so why did I make this project? So I'm finishing a project called 15 Years in St. Louis because I moved to St. Louis from Buenos Aires 15 years ago, and I saw some work from another artist, and I want to share that, and did a workshop, and then I thought, oh, I would love to explore how to incorporate metals in my work. So here you have I think the artist that inspired me to work with encaustic and with brass and cyanotypes. So that I wanted to share that because those people inspired me. Let me see how I remove my sharing. Yes, and so to explore this, can you see me? Yes? Sorry, I don't know what I did.
We can see you.
Yes, you can? Okay, because I cannot see you. Now I see you. Yes, sorry. So to explore the incorporation of metals into my work was supported by the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis. I created a project, 15 years in St. Louis, and I said, well, if you can support me with the materials, I would love to incorporate those in my work. So yes, that was awarded, which I didn't think it would happen. So my first message, if you have a project, I think there are so many opportunities perhaps to ask for help and make them happen. So that was the first surprise. What did I do with the 15 years? I thought what each year happened in my life in those 15 years. And I usually paint flowers. So I looked for a flower that represented each year. And I created the painting of each flower combining mediums. What mediums did I use? I used oil, resin, metal, and encaustic. And so I wanted to just share a little bit of each medium. I know you are artists, so you know probably more than I do in some of them. I think my strongest is the resin because I've been working a lot and I have different kinds of use for the resin. But I'll just go through the different mediums and share. I've shared the things that I think were different from what I had heard before. So first was the collage, preparing papers with colors. As I said, I like flowers. I did many cyanotypes. I know there's a workshop for the Best of Missouri Hands about cyanotypes. So just as the sun was very strong in October or August or September of last year, I prepared many cyanotypes, thinking about the flowers, if I could incorporate them. And also some that were just to explore using ink, alcohol ink. I use a lot of alcohol ink, India ink, and regarding the papers, so if I'm working with encaustic, incorporating into encaustic, I need the papers to be thin so that the wax can absorb them. So I used rice paper, and the one that I learned and I liked a lot is tea bag paper. So tea bag paper is very strong, and you can incorporate it in the encaustic and also in the resin. I also did some cyanotypes and collage papers with thicker papers that I can incorporate in the resin. So these are not going to work. This is like a watercolor paper into the encaustic. And again, what I use depending, so if I want the encaustic to absorb the paper, I mostly use inks or things that are not making a layer that the wax will not be able to absorb. So tea bag paper was something that I had never used, and I started using, and I love it. It's not cheap, but so yes. So then that was the collage paper part. And then the encaustic, I had worked with encaustic before. And in this case, this year, I used it as a pour. I poured the rest, the encaustic, sorry, and then embedded paper on top of it, or I just painted with the color. So, and you all may have seen and used the encaustic. So this is the transparent one. And then I had those little colors that I could also use. I love to make the encaustic absorb the paper. That's so cool. And I wanted to show you what I did just to explore these mediums is, for example, this one is paper embedded into the encaustic, and then this is a piece of etched brass metal. Yes, so it's not flowers. Then I will show you the flowers. But well, just combining this, and this is not very thick, but let's see this one, for example. So in this one, I don't know if you can see, but the encaustic is kind of thick. So I created a container to before pouring the wax. I'm sorry, my English is. I hope, and if it's difficult to understand, just let me know, because sometimes it's not.
You're great. I wanted to suggest to those of you that, yeah, I wanted to suggest to any of you who wanted to see Nela bigger, you can go up to the top right corner of your screen and change from gallery view to speaker view if you want to see her artwork a little more close up. You'll see whoever's speaking at the time.
Yes. Or you can right-click on her and pin her, so she's automatically up there the whole time.
Thank you.
Yes. So for these, and you will see this this masking tape. So I use that also with the resin. So I created a container. I put the masking tape around, melt the wax, and then pour it with this little thing. So like I use this little thing. I pour the wax there, and then of course I need to work fast, so because it will be dry in a moment. But well, when I create the container, and I will show you here, it's I'll do the same with the resin. So it's this masking tape, which I didn't know. I used to use the resin in a different way. I use the masking tape to create this container. For the encaustic, if I'm pouring and then putting the paper and fusing it, or even if this has resin on top, you will see that it shines. So also when I'm working with resin, I create the same container with the masking tape. Yes. So in this case, I poured the encaustic and it has some thickness there. Yes. And then I put the cyanotype on top, fuse it, and then it's absorbed and on top of the painting. Yes. So that's how I did used encaustic. And there are some pieces where I just poured the encaustic and painted with a pigment oil stick, ink, whatever. It's so much. I love encaustic. So the encaustic part, I showed you that. I have another one here where you can see this is the encaustic. Perhaps you can see them better here. This is the encaustic. This is resin, and this is another collage paper under the resin. Yes. And again, I use the same process with the masking tape, making a container out of this board. Yes, so this is okay. So is there any question or something? No, yeah, good. Okay. So the third medium, so we said collage, the encaustic, and the third medium that was new for me are the metal plates. So what I do is I buy the metal plates, yes, and I don't know if we can share where we buy them, but I have a handout with that information. They come like this, yes, and the other thing that I think is very cool are the metal strips. So you saw in my paintings that I have the metal strips allow me to, so this is a metal strip here. These allow me to combine different mediums. So I can use resin here and I can use the encaustic here. So the metal strips, I love them. They are very nice and easy to bend. Yes. And I use a Starborn glue that attaches them to the board and you can't remove it then. So really, if you want to do something combining mediums, I think these metal strips are beautiful, and I don't know if you can see them. And so with the metal plates, what I did was to etch them, and I used this ferric chloride, yes. So in my case, and I am not an expert, but this is what I learned, was, and I have a little piece here that is etched. So I used a resist acrylic paint on the places that I didn't want to be touched by the solution. And then I draw whatever I wanted to draw on the metal plate. And then I put it in the container with the solution and leave it there for, depending if it's a new solution, you can reuse this. It's new in 2 or 3 hours, it's etched, yes. And if it's all you're using, it might take 4 or 5 hours in that big container. And you need to be careful with your hands. And because yes, I started and did a lot of wrong things, but so you leave it there. And when you remove it, you put it in another container with baking soda so that it stops the process of etching. And then I cleaned it, sanded, and cut it. Cutting was also another experience and learning process, cutting the metals. Not terrible. And I love the metals. I think it's a beautiful addition to the paintings. How did I apply the metal to the paintings? So as I mentioned, you have, this is the metal strips. So these are part of it. And then this is, so I kind of draw the leaves of the hydrangea and etched it, cut it, and attached to the board. So this is part of the background of my painting. And you can put that brass metal plate or metal edge under the resin, yes, or you can leave it, well, seal it, and then leave it without any, so this is, it has nothing on top. So some of my paintings have just without any resin on top, and some have the resin on top, so you can see with the light that they shine. Thinking if I'm forgetting anything about the azules. If you want, I have a short, very short video of the, let me see if I can share here. I'm not very good at the technology, even though I studied something with the technology, but no, and I can't see it here. Why is it not here? Well, okay, well, I can't. If you, let me see, because I can't find the video. See. 1 second, I'll see if I can do this. No. I told you this is not the no. No. Give me 1 second. So can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
We're seeing you.
Don't see my screen,
You're
not
not
sharing.
Are you saying a video? No. No.
No.
No, we're not.
Okay. Give me 1 second. And are you seeing something? My just the same.
Yep,
Change?
we're seeing a video right now.
Okay. So that's sorry, so this is part of the etching process, and I also use ink on the bottom that has resin. I'm pouring resin on those pieces as you see the masking tape. So, but I wanted to show, especially with this video, the way that I'm sanding the metal and okay, so now do it again. So this is where I'm sanding the metal that you will see then in a piece as part of the background. Okay, I'm trying to see if there's, and this one, so that I was able to So this is how I am attaching using the metal strips to attach them to the board. This is encaustic that has been embedding, and now I'm pouring resin in one of the parts of the painting. So just wanted to share that. And I share this one because I don't know if I will be able to come back to this place with my abilities. So this is also the process of preparing all the parts using the metal strips, as these are preparing like leaves of the agapanthus, priming the board, and I had already etched those metal pieces. In the top, I'm adding resin, and I will explain how I do the resin paintings there with oil later in a moment. But this is, so each place that I divided, so I made different containers with the metal strips, and then use the resin or the encaustic or yes, inside those containers. So that's how I'm working with all the mediums. And this is how it looks after I made the painting. So there was a difficult or more complicated part. Let me see how I go back. To second. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, okay. So, as I mentioned, those combination of mediums, I already talked about the etching, and if you have any questions, let me know. And then now I'm going to explain a little bit about the resin. So the resin, probably, well, I know some of you use resin. I started using resin back in 2020. And you kind of need a container, as I was mentioning before, unless you are doing a very flat pour. So for example, here, it's just the board, the paper, and then just a very thin layer of resin. So I can be very careful and pour the layer of resin on top of any painting. And just be careful with the sides. I masked the sides before, of course. But that's one way of using the resin. I use, for me, the best that I have found is art resin. So this is the one that I use. Not cheap, but good. So different uses is just pouring on top of everything. I love resin. You can put it inside everything that you have in hand. And but what I started doing that is kind of unique, I think, in a way. So as you may know, resin doesn't stick to silicone, parchment paper, and plastic. So what I did, my previous body of work, and will continue to be my body of work, was to create a container with foam and then cover the bottom with plastic. So this is a plastic bag, not very thin, but a plastic bag. And then I paint with oil between layers of resin. Well, this is ink. So I pour a layer, let it dry for 1 day, paint on it with ink, with oil. You can also use acrylic, by oil. Oil is I love oil. So I paint with oil and then pour another layer of resin, let it dry for 1 day, pour paint on it. And so I have paintings that have these little ones may have 3 or 4 layers. This is just the background. There's nothing there, but 3 or 4 layers, but I have some bigger that have 5 or 6 layers of resin. And then once you have the painting, you remove it from the mold, like as if you were working on a silicone mold, and you have a piece of resin, which I don't have here, I think. But well, you will remove it from here. Here. Here, I'm removing it from taking off the paper. Then I have, this is one painting that I don't like, but it hurts for them. So then you have this piece, you see it has some thickness because of the layers, and I paint the flowers from the bottom to the top. So the question was then, how will I make a painting out of this? So what I did is I used the same thing that you saw, and I used little pieces of resin to attach them to a board and then frame them. So that's how, and I think well, this is ink, the dimension that you have, because you have that layering of the flowers is very interesting, and of course I like it. And I think it's quite unique. But so my work with resin is huge, and it's in all these flowers too, and it's where I feel more confident, is with the painting with oil between layers of resin. And I'm not waiting for the oil to dry. So I really, because otherwise it would take years, but it usually stays. There are some oil paintings that are more oily. I try not to use those, but so the idea of the resin in a container, you can use the silicone mold, or you can make your own mold, sorry, and use plastic on the bottom, and that gives this. And it's very interesting. You cannot see that from there, but it's the plastic gives the back of the piece also a lot of wrinkles. That when you see this with light, it's very interesting. So you could make coasters with this idea. They will be expensive because it is very detailed work, but the resin, it's, as I mentioned, you can put also a painting on this, so watercolor painting embedded into this same piece of resin. So that was my, and it's still my body of work. With this project, the 15 years in St. Louis, I thought it was better to just work on a board. I might explore later how to incorporate the brass and the metals inside these pieces, yes. But there was too much to explore, so I decided, well, it's safer to start with the board. So resin process, I said they mentioned the brand that I use. So then the challenge was to combine. So think of an agapanthus, as you saw in the video, and combine, think, well, what will be the brass? What will be the encaustic? So what I will do, if you want to see, I will share briefly what I did with some of the paintings. This is easy, I can do this. Yes, I think I can. Is it okay? Too boring? No, it's okay. Too boring there. No. Okay. And I'll show you how I combined them, these 4 mediums in one. So let me see, it's waiting there. So here, well, I primed the bottom, painted with oil the flower. There's a cyanotype, and with encaustic on that side, divided by the metal strip. And I painted with watercolor, kind of that background, greenish background, and the leaves with brass. Here you have, so there's the brass here, the painting of that flower, all the resin parts are layers. So this is 30 by 30 piece, so it has a lot of resin all over, so it's all covered in resin, several layers, and then caustic is here in that chunky part. So and well, if you see this in person, you can see more the layers. Please let me know if you have any questions. Well, these are photos from the.
When you have that many layers, Nela, when you have
Sorry?
that many layers, does it get heavy with that many layers?
It is, they are heavy, and they are encaustic boards. So really the encaustic board by itself is heavy. So the bigger ones, like 30 by 30 and 48 by 36 are heavy, yes. Yes, they are. But the resin, the resin piece, as I showed you before, the one that I put on the board, it's not heavy at all, because it's more like plastic. So it's many people think it's glass. It would be much heavier. So the paintings, the pieces of resin are not very, very heavy. And with this big one, this is a 48 by 36. So this has like 3 gallons of resin. So that makes it heavy, yes. With this, I decided to just rust the metal, because it has kind of, and you cannot see it very well in this photo, but it has kind of a pinky color that I liked to put there. So so this is how, this is the one that you saw that I had etched. I used the metal strips to create all these different spaces in the painting, and some of them have resin, the shiny ones, and there are 2 greens that are encaustic, just plain encaustic with color, resin, encaustic is the yellow, and then the painting that is several layers. I don't know if you can see the different layers. This white is the top one. So this is, and I didn't add any resin on top of this, of the metal. In this one, you can see here, I think, the layers, the ink, the blue ink and green ink on the bottom. I always start, in this case, I used the metal plate. Yes, the metal plate is just as I bought it. I didn't touch it. I said, well, let's see how it looks, just shiny as it was bought. And so I attach it to the board, pour a full layer of resin to the 30 by 30, and then started painting with put the ink, and then started the different layers. And perhaps you can see there the different layers. Well, I take the photos like this because it's difficult to take photos and see how the resin shines. So I thought, well, I just so that you can see. So this is also a big one, and again the same rusting of the 2 metal plates as part of the background, and then the painting of the flowers, and the encaustic are the branches are painted with encaustic. So it's a little bit of encaustic, and this is also, so here the metal is etched and sanded and sealed, but it's left without any resin on top. And then resin is the blue and encaustic is green, the green plain. And then the painting with resin in different layers. This is similar to the one that I have here, that mine was a practice. So I was trying to explore and see how it worked. So I thought this worked, so I did it again, the hydrangea. And then this is encaustic, just having fun with the colors and throwing encaustic on. So I found, I think I said the challenge was to put all the mediums and just try to look that this looks nice, at least for me. And this is another thing that I learned was to, and I love how this turned out. Well, it was a mistake that I made. I used a China marker to mark the metal to cut it. And then I saw that it was untouched. So I said, okay, I can draw with a China marker on the metal and then put it in the solution, and that will be left untouched. So I decided to draw part of the flower on the metal and etched it and, well, sand it again, as I mentioned, paint these flowers in the different, you cannot see very much here, the different layers. And this is encaustic, so with a little bit of gold. And well, this is similar, so resin and the edge brass on the top, the metal strips, and then the encaustic painting on the bottom. And that's kind of an idea of how did I came with all this, put all the pieces together. I'm thinking, well, that's all I've talked a lot. Yes, Barbara.
Hi, these are absolutely gorgeous. But I'm curious if I understood correctly. You said you put them on a board, because I'm wondering, how are they hanging on the wall? What's on the backing? Is it a board that somehow you can then hang?
Yes, it's a board. So I started using a wood board. Well, for the encaustic, you need to have, and the resin, well, the resin, you can use a canvas, but I think it's easier if you have a board that it's a wood board that you prime. Yes. For the resin and the encaustic, you need to have some tooth in the back of the board. It's better. So I primed, so I used a board, and all the paintings are the same. It's an encaustic board or a wood board and primed, and then I worked on top of that. And then I hung them with a wire, but this has this little thing.
Right. It just didn't, on those larger pieces, it didn't look like there was a board along the side. That's why I got lost there.
Well, you have the sides, and I painted the sides with gold. Yes, but they have this thickness, so
they are that thick. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, they are this thick, and I don't have any photo, but they are the same thickness as this little board. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
What did you find to be your biggest challenge as you moved into using so many different mediums?
Well, I think it was to combine them all in the flowers. I think that the flowers they are full of movement, and the metal was kind of not the metal strip, but the metal I found that was kind of stiff, so I needed to incorporate it and not lose the movement of the flowers. I think that the challenge to put them all together, it was really a challenge that I enjoyed, but it took a long time to put all the parts together, to make the puzzle, so create all the pieces and put them together. It took more time than I expected. Any other questions?
Now that you've been doing it for a while, Do you find more joy in the challenge of combining the mediums versus using a single medium?
I think in my in the future I'll do both. Sometimes it will be the comfort space that I have with the resin that I showed you, but I think the adding of the incorporating of the metal, it's another level, and I'll try to continue. Yes, depending on the day, but I like to challenge and change. So that's why I learned encaustic here, and then I added the resin, and then I said, okay, now what's next? So of course I feel more comfortable with something, but I'm happy with move out of my comfort zone too.
Is anyone here considering moving into other mediums? Have questions from your own practice that maybe Nela could give her perspective on?
Well, one of the things I've been looking at is what to do differently with the photography. And I've played around with doing transfers using different solvents and that kind of thing. And and I started writing just some question marks down, and then you mentioned you can't, like with encaustics, it has to absorb. So I'm thinking, well, that may not work if I transfer something to a watercolor paper, but I could maybe put resin on anyway, it's making me think, which is good. It's good.
Yes. Well, that's good. Well, you can transfer photographs into the encaustic, so that's you can. It's not, you are not putting the same photograph on the encaustic, but there's a process to transfer. Yes, photographs. You print them in a laser printer. You put it on encaustic, and yes, and the wax will get that ink from the photo. Yes, there's a process to incorporate photographs into, and then you can just leave it like that. Yes, or you can paint on top of that. So yes, there's a technique to transfer photographs into encaustic. Yes, and it's cool, and it's not very, very, very complicated. It's nice.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, Nela, I really appreciate it. I had no full understanding of just about your process. Being a glass artist, it's all, I'm in awe with all that you're doing and the various mediums you're combining to create such a beautiful effect.
Thank you. Well, it was really a joy, and the idea was also to share. So if at any point anyone has any questions about any of the, if I know, I'm happy to share. And it's been good, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to explore and to learn more and to share and learn from you too. So thank you.
And
Thank you.
I think this is a
seeing your
selfish
message in your art.
ploy. I know you have an exhibit that's up for just a couple more days. You want to tell everybody about the exhibit that's going on right now?
Well, yes, well, because the grant was also to exhibit, which was also cool because I don't exhibit my work a lot. So, so I'm also happy with that. So I have an exhibition here in St. Louis at SKH Gallery on Clayton Road, and it's until this Saturday. And it's those 15 years in St. Louis, so it's the 15 flowers. And for each year I wrote what happened and why was the name of the flower. And it's also on my website if you want to learn more about my work. All the exhibition is on my website or at the gallery if you want to visit. Yes. And the gallery is also a new place. So they are trying to see if they can survive. And so they have, you can also rent space to show your work. So that's what I do.
Well, thank you very much, and thank all of you for joining us with today's workshop. As always, it will be loaded up to the Best Missouri Hands YouTube channel if you want to go back and refer to anything that might have piqued your interest in the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is great.